The Talent Code, by Daniel Coyle. Introduction. Imagine a 13-year-old girl named Clarissa. She's sitting in her room, clarinet in hand, looking completely ordinary. She's wearing a blue hoodie and an expression of sleepy indifference. By all accounts, her teachers, her parents, even her own, Clarissa is not musically gifted. Her sense of rhythm is average, her motivation is low. She's just a kid. But then, a researcher's camera starts rolling, and for 5 minutes and 54 seconds, something extraordinary happens. Clarissa is working on a new jazz song. She plays a few notes, then stops. She squints at the sheet music. She plays the phrase again, misses a note, and immediately pulls the clarinet away from her lips. She sings the part softly to herself. She starts over, gets a little farther, misses another note, backtracks, and patches the mistake. To an outsider, it looks like she's failing. The music is broken, halting, full of stops and starts. It's not a performance, it's a struggle. But the music psychologist watching the video says, "This is amazing stuff." Because in those 6 minutes, this average kid, without even realizing it, accelerates her learning speed by 10 times. She performs a month's worth of practice in the time it takes to make a cup of tea. How is that possible? What if I told you that the secret to Clarissa's breakthrough is the same secret behind a rundown tennis club in Moscow that produces more top 20 female players than the entire United States? And that it's the same secret that fueled the artists of the Renaissance and the world's greatest soccer players in Brazil? This isn't a story about genetic gifts or mysterious, inborn talent. It's the story of a hidden code, a universal mechanism in our brains that allows us to grow our own abilities. It's a code that anyone can learn to unlock. Today, we're diving into The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. This book is a journey into the heart of human potential, and it sold hundreds of thousands of copies because it answers one of the most fundamental questions we all ask: where does greatness come from? Coyle, a brilliant investigative journalist, spent years visiting the world's most unlikely cradles of talent, what he calls talent hotbeds, to crack this code. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand it too. You will see that greatness isn't something you're born with. It's something you grow. And you'll have the blueprint for how to grow it yourself. Book summary. Every story of incredible talent seems to follow the same script. We see a brilliant musician, a dazzling athlete, or a genius artist, and we assume they were simply born different. We see their fluid, effortless performance and think, I could never do that. It feels like magic. But Daniel Coyle pulls back the curtain on this magic trick and shows us the machinery working behind the scenes. And the machine is built from 3 simple, powerful components: deep practice, ignition, and master coaching. Together, they form the talent code. Let's start with the first, and perhaps most important ingredient: deep practice. Think back to Clarissa, the young clarinet player. Her practice was slow, frustrating, and full of mistakes. Common sense tells us that this is a terrible way to learn. We think effortless performance is the goal. But Coyle reveals a stunning paradox: struggling in a specific, targeted way is the single most effective way to learn. This isn't just a psychological trick, it's a biological requirement. To understand why, we need to look deep inside our brains. Every human skill, whether it's hitting a baseball, playing a chord, or solving a math problem, is built on a neural circuit. Think of it like a path of nerve fibers carrying an electrical signal. When you perform an action, a specific circuit fires. Now, here's the secret ingredient. Our brains have a substance called myelin. Myelin is a fatty tissue that acts as insulation for these nerve circuits. The more you fire a particular circuit, the more layers of myelin wrap around it. And just like rubber insulation on a copper wire, Myelin makes the signal traveling down that nerve fiber stronger, faster, and more precise. The thicker the myelin, the better you are at the skill. So, skill isn't some abstract quality. It's a physical thing. Skill is myelin. And the best way to build it is through deep practice. Deep practice is what happens when you operate at the very edge of your abilities. You're not just mindlessly repeating something you can already do. You're reaching for something just beyond your grasp, so you're forced to slow down, make mistakes, and correct them. Each time you stumble, correct, and try again, you are firing that specific circuit and signaling your brain, this circuit is important. Wrap it with more myelin. Coyle gives a brilliant example of this in action. He traveled to Brazil to understand why this one country produces so many of the world's most creative and skilled soccer players, year after year. He expected to find them playing on beautiful grass fields. Instead, he found them playing a different game altogether. It's called futsal, or soccer in a room. It's played on a hard surface, often the size of a basketball court, with a smaller, heavier ball that barely bounces. The game is incredibly fast and tight. With so little space, you can't just kick the ball downfield and run after it. You have to use incredible ball control, precision passing, and quick thinking. Here's the key. A university study found that futsal players touch the ball 600% more per minute than players in a traditional soccer game. Futsal is a deep practice machine. It compresses the essential skills of soccer into a small box, forcing players to constantly fire their skill circuits, solve problems, make mistakes, and adapt. They are building myelin at a supercharged rate without even realizing it. When they finally step onto a full-size soccer field, it feels like they have acres of time and space. This is the same principle that made the Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, literary giants. They grew up in a remote village, and as children, they didn't show signs of being born novelists. In fact, their early writing was pretty bad. They created tiny, handwritten books filled with stories that were mostly just imitations of the adventure and romance novels they read. They copied characters, mimicked famous authors, and made tons of spelling and grammar mistakes. But here's the secret. These little books were their version of a futsal court. In the safe, low-stakes world of their imaginary kingdoms, they practiced the craft of storytelling for thousands upon thousands of hours. They were firing their narrative circuits, learning about character, plot, and pacing. They were building the myelin for masterpieces like Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. Their early, clumsy efforts weren't a sign of a lack of genius. They were the very process that built it. So, the first rule of the talent code is to embrace the struggle. Deep practice isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to be imperfect, to operate in that sweet spot just beyond your current abilities, where you stumble and correct. Because every mistake, when you pay attention to it, is a signal to your brain to build another layer of myelin. And those layers, over time, add up to mastery. But that raises a crucial question. Deep practice is hard. It requires immense energy, passion, and persistence. Where does that motivation come from? If deep practice is the engine that builds skill, what is the fuel that makes the engine run? This brings us to the second element of the talent code, ignition. Ignition is that spark, that sudden, mysterious burst of motivation that tells you, that is who I want to be. It's not a conscious, logical decision. It's a primal cue that connects with our deepest desires for identity and belonging, and it floods our system with the energy needed for the hard work of deep practice. Coyle tells a stunning story about the rise of South Korean women in professional golf. Before 1998, there were virtually no South Korean women on the LPGA Tour. Then, a 20-year-old named Sae Pak won a major championship. She became a national hero overnight. Suddenly, Tens of thousands of young girls across South Korea saw someone who looked like them, who came from the same background, succeeding on the world stage. The message was simple and powerful: if she can do it, why can't I? 10 years later, there were 45 South Korean women on the LPGA Tour, dominating the sport. Nothing had changed about their genetics or the training facilities. What changed was a signal. A switch was flipped. An entire generation was ignited. This same phenomenon happened after Roger Bannister became the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes in 1954. For decades, the 4-minute mile was considered an unbreakable physiological barrier. But once Bannister did it, the barrier shattered in people's minds. Just weeks later, another runner broke it. Within 3 years, 17 more runners had done it. The impossible had become a stepping stone. These are what Coyle calls primal cues, simple, powerful signals that tap into our unconscious motivational triggers. And one of the most powerful primal cues is the idea of future belonging. We are social creatures, hardwired to connect with groups. When we see a group or an individual that we admire and identify with, our brain sends a flood of energy toward becoming like them. One of the most fascinating studies Coyle highlights was done by a music psychologist named Gary McPherson. He asked a group of kids, before they had ever taken their first music lesson, a simple question: how long do you think you'll play your instrument? Their answers fell into 3 groups: short-term, medium-term, and long-term commitment. The results were mind-blowing. The kids who, for whatever reason, saw themselves as long-term musicians, the ones who had already formed an identity around it, outperformed everyone else by a massive margin. With the exact same amount of practice, the long-term group improved by 400% more than the short-term group. In fact, a long-term kid practicing just 20 minutes a week progressed faster than a short-term kid practicing for an hour and a half. Their success wasn't determined by innate musical aptitude. It was determined by a tiny, powerful idea they held in their minds before they even started. I am a musician. That idea acted as the fuel, the ignition, for all the deep practice that followed. And this ignition can be intentionally created. Coyle takes us inside a network of inner-city schools called KIP, which stands for the Knowledge is Power program. These schools take students from low-income neighborhoods, who are often years behind academically, and put them on a path to college. Over 80% of KIP students go on to attend college, a staggering success rate. How do they do it? They create an environment of total ignition. From the very first day, everything at KIP sends a single, powerful message: you are going to college. The students are called by the year they will graduate from college, the class of 2030. Their classrooms are named after universities. They take trips to visit college campuses. The word college is repeated hundreds of times a day, not as a distant dream, but as a concrete identity. KIP creates a new sense of belonging. The message is, people like us work hard. People like us are nice. People like us go to college. This powerful sense of identity provides the motivational fuel for the incredibly hard work and deep practice the students do every single day. KIP shows that you don't have to wait for a lightning strike of inspiration like, say, Repack. You can build a world that is rich with the signals that ignite passion and effort. So we have the method, deep practice, and we have the fuel, ignition. But there's one more piece to the puzzle. Who helps us navigate this difficult journey? Who guides us into the sweet spot of deep practice and keeps the fires of ignition burning? This is the third and final element of the talent code: master coaching. When we think of a great coach, we often picture a charismatic leader giving inspiring speeches, like a general rallying his troops. But when Coyle visited the talent hotbeds, he found that the world's best coaches were the complete opposite. They were quiet, observant, and almost allergic to pep talks. Many of them were older, with decades of experience. They were what Coyle calls talent whisperers. Their magic wasn't in grand speeches, but in delivering short, targeted, highly specific pieces of information, precisely at the moment a student needed it. They were like human GPS units for building skill. Coyle introduces us to John Wooden, the legendary UCLA basketball coach who won 10 national championships. Researchers who studied Wooden's practices were shocked by what they found. Wooden almost never gave praise. He rarely expressed displeasure. Instead, 75% of his communication was pure, unvarnished information. He would deliver a quick, 3-second demonstration. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. Do it the right way. His words were like a Gatling gun of targeted corrections, each one helping a player hone a specific neural circuit. He was a master of guiding deep practice. Another master coach, the cello teacher Hans Jensen, seems to have a kind of ESP with his students. In a single lesson, Coyle watched him transform his approach. With one advanced student who was technically perfect but lacked emotion, Jensen became a wild, energetic cheerleader, shouting, "Now! There is only now! You gotta go wah!" like a turbine. But with the very next student, who was struggling and nervous, he became a calm, gentle Zen master. He leaned in and whispered, "You must think it. Sink the whole piece in your mind. That is the vitamin." Great coaches don't have one-size-fits-all advice. Their real skill lies in their ability to instantly diagnose a student's needs and deliver the exact signal that will help them grow. They have what Coyle calls a matrix, a vast, deep knowledge of their craft, built over years and years of their own deep practice. This matrix allows them to see the subtle stumbles of a student reaching for mastery and to connect with them with the perfect, targeted message. But there's another kind of master coach, one that's just as important, especially at the very beginning of a journey. A study by researcher Benjamin Bloom looked at the first teachers of world-class pianists, swimmers, and tennis players. He discovered something astonishing. Most of them didn't start with elite, highly technical coaches. They started with local, neighborhood teachers who were described as kindly, patient, and great with kids. These first teachers weren't masters of technique. They were masters of ignition. Their primary job wasn't to build perfect skill circuits. It was to make the child fall in love with the activity. They made practice feel like a game. They created a warm, encouraging environment where the child became captivated and hooked. They weren't coaching the skill, they were coaching love. So, master coaching isn't one thing. It's two. At the beginning of a journey, we need a coach who can ignite our passion. Then, as we progress, we need a coach who can guide our deep practice with precision and wisdom. When you put these three elements together, the targeted struggle of deep practice, the motivational fire of ignition, and the expert guidance of master coaching, you get the code for building talent. It's a feedback loop. Ignition provides the energy for deep practice. Deep practice builds the skill circuits, rap by rap. And a master coach guides the whole process, keeping the energy high and the practice on point. The talent code flips our entire understanding of ability on its head. It shows us that talent is not a fixed, genetic gift. It is a process. It is a muscle that can be built. We are all born with the machinery to become great at something. The secret is knowing how to turn it on and how to make it grow. Greatness isn't born. It's grown. And now, you know how. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through the talent code, I want to take a moment to reflect on why this book is so profoundly important, especially right now. The single most powerful idea that Daniel Coyle gives us is the idea of hope. He dismantles the myth of natural talent, that destructive belief that some people just have it and the rest of us don't. How many times have you tried something new, struggled with it, and thought, "I guess I'm just not good at this"? That thought is a door slamming shut on your potential. The talent code gives you the key to unlock that door. It reframes struggle not as a sign of weakness, but as the very path to strength. That feeling of frustration, of reaching and falling short, that's not failure. That's the feeling of myelin being built. That's the feeling of growth. Understanding this on a biological level is a complete game changer. It gives you permission to be a beginner, to be clumsy, to make mistakes. It turns every challenge into an opportunity. This book also gives us a new lens through which to view the world. You start to see the talent code everywhere. You see it in the way a master chef teaches an apprentice, in the way a great company fosters innovation, and even in the way a child learns to walk, staggering, falling, and getting back up, building myelin with every wobbly step. So, how can you apply this in your own life, starting today? Let me offer 3 simple actions. First, find your sweet spot. Whatever it is you want to get better at, a sport, an instrument, a subject in school, even public speaking, don't just mindlessly go through the motions. Identify the specific skills that are just beyond your current reach. Break them down into the smallest possible chunks, slow them down, and work on them with intense focus. Embrace the mistakes, because that's where the learning happens. Ask yourself, what is the smallest, hardest thing I can do right now to get better? Second, engineer your own ignition. Motivation isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. Surround yourself with signals that reinforce your identity. If you want to be a writer, find a community of writers. Read the work of authors you admire. Put a picture of your favorite author on your desk. These aren't silly little tricks, they are powerful primal cues that tell your unconscious mind, this is who we are. This is what we do. Your environment shapes your identity, so be the architect of your environment. And third, praise the effort, not the ability. This is crucial, whether you're talking to yourself or to others. The research of Carol Dweck, which Coyle highlights, is crystal clear on this. When you say, I'm smart at this, you create a fear of failure. But when you say, I worked really hard at this, you create a passion for challenges. Celebrate the struggle. Acknowledge the persistence. Because effort isn't just a means to an end, it's the engine of growth itself. That was a summary of the Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a postcard of the Grand Canyon. It gives you the idea, but it can't capture the awe of standing on the edge yourself. The real magic of this book is in the stories, the scientific details, and the way Coyle weaves it all together. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is a worthy investment of your time. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity or given you a new sense of what's possible, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it is an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your own potential. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.